Stay with me until the very end of this story, because what seems like a simple act of kindness turns into a life-changing revelation that will completely flip your expectations. And if stories that touch your heart and remind you that humanity still matters mean something to you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps keep stories like this alive. Everyone in the city knew the name Alexander Rowe. Billionaire, visionary, untouchable. His glass towers pierced the skyline, his companies fed thousands of families, and his face appeared on magazine covers with words like genius and legend stamped beneath his smile. What no one knew was that Alexander was exhausted of praise, of flattery, of people who only saw his money. After a betrayal that cost him not just millions but his trust in humanity, he made a decision that shocked even himself. He disappeared from his own world and returned disguised as someone powerless, someone invisible. He shaved his beard unevenly, wore worn-out clothes, and pretended to be a man recovering from an accident, unable to work properly, barely able to walk without a limp. He moved back into one of his old estates under a fake name, announcing that he would stay secluded and needed only one maid to maintain the house. That maid was Clara. Clara was 26, quiet, and carried more weight in her heart than she ever spoke aloud. She had lost her parents young, raised her younger brother, and took whatever work she could to keep food on the table. She wasn't bitter, though. Tired, yes, lonely, often, but she believed, almost stubbornly, that kindness still mattered, even when life gave you every reason to harden. When she arrived at the mansion and saw the so-called helpless man sitting alone by the window, she didn't see a billionaire fallen from grace. She saw someone hurting. Alexander expected indifference, maybe irritation. What he didn't expect was the way Clara spoke to him, not down to him, not around him, but with him. She asked if he'd eaten. She noticed when his hands trembled as he lifted a cup. She adjusted his blanket without being asked. And when he snapped at her one morning, frustrated with his own charade and the ache of old memories, she didn't argue. She simply said, "Pain makes people sharp. I'll give you space, but I won't disappear." That sentence followed him all day. Days turned into weeks. Clara cleaned, cooked, and quietly brought warmth back into the cold, echoing mansion. At night, Alexander listened from his room as she hummed softly while washing dishes, a sound so gentle it made his chest ache. He started testing her without meaning to, dropping coins on the floor to see if she'd steal, pretending to forget where things were to see if she'd grow impatient. She never did. When he accused her unfairly one afternoon of misplacing important documents, she stood there, eyes glossy but voice steady, and said, "I may be poor, sir, but I am honest. That's all I have." Shame washed over him like ice water. One evening, Clara found him collapsed near the stairs. The limp, the weakness, suddenly too convincing. She panicked, called for help, and sat beside him, holding his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Please don't die," she whispered, tears slipping down her face. "You don't get to leave before you've lived." In that moment, Alexander realized something terrifying. This woman, who thought he was nothing, cared more for him than anyone who knew he was everything. As his strength slowly returned, they began to talk. Real conversations. He told her about losing someone he loved to greed and lies. She told him about sacrificing her dreams so her brother could go to school. They laughed quietly over burnt toast and shared silence that felt safe. Alexander found himself looking forward to her footsteps in the hallway. He hated himself for lying to her, but he feared the truth even more. Would she still look at him the same if she knew who he really was? The test came sooner than expected. Clara's brother was in trouble, wrong place, wrong time, accused of a crime he didn't commit. Legal fees were impossible. Clara begged for extra shifts, worked until her hands ached, and still fell short. One night, Alexander overheard her crying alone in the kitchen, apologizing to her absent parents for not being enough. The next morning, he offered her money. Not a loan, not charity, just help. She refused. "I won't sell my dignity," she said gently. "But thank you for seeing me." That was the moment everything cracked open. Alexander revealed the truth in the only way he knew how, completely. He showed her documents, accounts, proof of who he was. The billionaire, the owner, the man behind the mask. Clara didn't scream. She didn't smile. She sat down slowly, as if the floor had shifted beneath her. Then she stood up and said something that stunned him more than any reaction he imagined. "You were testing me," she said. "And I was living my life." She handed him her apron, thanked him for the job, and walked toward the door. Panic gripped him. He stopped her, not with money, not with power, but with honesty for the first time in years. He apologized, not as a billionaire, as a man. He admitted his fear of being used, his loneliness, his shame. He told her she changed him, not because she was kind to a rich man, but because she was kind to a helpless one. Clara listened. Then she did what no one else ever had. She set boundaries. She stayed. Together, they helped her brother clear his name legally and publicly. Alexander didn't hide behind lawyers. He stood beside Clara in court, silent support, not savior. Months passed. The mansion no longer felt empty. Clara went back to school. Alexander rebuilt his company with a new philosophy: people before profit. When the world eventually learned that the billionaire had once lived as a helpless man, the story went viral. But the part that mattered most never made headlines. That kindness, when given without expectation, has the power to change everything. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that compassion still matters in a world obsessed with status, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the greatest transformations begin when we treat the unseen as invaluable, and the helpless as human.